My name is Daniel Wynn, and by day I invest in collectibles. But by night I also make videos about investing in collectibles. I am the Great Curator, and I invite you to join me on my journey to break even in the hobby that we all love.
All right, guys, I am back. I know it's been a minute since I made one of these informational videos. Truth be told, these things are very hard to make. They take a lot of time. I'm on my 50th take doing this because I keep messing up, no joke. So I wanted to take time away from making these informational videos so that I could focus on building my podcast, Between Two Slabs, that I do with my good friend Merlin at Merworld Cards. We go live on YouTube every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and we just talk about the hobby, we answer questions, and I give information like this in that live podcast. But lately I've been getting a lot of feedback from you guys about how much you guys like my old informational videos, that catalog that I have, how you guys get value from it, how you appreciate it, how you learn from it, and how you want me to make more. And I thought to myself, you know, if people still watch these videos and they're still learning something and it can still help people out there, especially new people to the hobby, what the hell? I might as well just start making these videos again. So I am back, and today's topic is something I've been thinking about a lot lately. It's what I call margin buyers, okay? Margin buyers, what they are, what they do, why they're good for the hobby, and what some alternatives are to margin buyers, okay? And I know what you're thinking. Dan, what are you talking about? What is a margin buyer? Why are you always making up these hobby terms? Tenderize, gold digging hour, margin buyer, what does it mean? Okay, I'm going to explain to you, okay? Very simply, a margin buyer is somebody that buys your cards, that will cash you out of your cards at a lower percentage of the comp. They buy it on margin. The industry standard right now, I'm seeing the hobby standard is about 70%. So these are the guys that will buy your cards at about 70% of whatever the current comp is. And what prompted me to want to make this video is I was at the Dallas Card Show a couple weeks ago, and I saw all these vendors there. Big banners, big signs, handwritten signs that they put on their tables, and they all said the same thing. Buying, 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 cash you out, paying strong, right? And they advertise that. They put that there advertised to bring, so that you bring your cards to their table so that they can look at them and buy them from you. And if you're new to the hobby and you're not accustomed to seeing that practice and you don't necessarily know what it means, or if you've never dealt with these people, you might think that, oh, that's great. I'm gonna go to the table, I'm gonna sell my cards, I'm gonna make a lot of money, I can take that money and I can, go buy more cards or whatever, right? And you'll go to those tables and you'll have an idea of the value of these cards in your mind from doing your own research. You give them your stack of cards, they'll look through it. They usually pick out the best ones. Then they will start researching the comps on those cards. They'll use their pricing tools, they'll check eBay comps, whatever. Then you're expecting to get the offer, right? And you're probably expecting, if you're new to this, you're probably expecting an offer close to whatever the current value of that card is. But then they hit you with it, with the gut punch. They tenderize you and they give you a 70% offer on the card. If the card is worth $100, they'll give you $70 for it, okay? And if you're not used to this and you've never seen it before, you might get offended. You might think that they're lowballing you, that they're trying to cheat you, okay? And you might not know how to react. Or if you're like me, when I first came back in the hobby and people were hitting me with these below comp offers, these margin buyers, you might feel like that is the customary way to do business in the hobby, and you might not have another choice. If I want to sell my card to this guy and get cash, I guess I have to sell it at 70% value or whatever it is, right? You might feel almost obligated to do that. I know a lot of people do, okay? So I'm here to tell you, it is not, you don't have to feel obligated to do it, okay? It might be a hobby standard of practice, but it is not a hobby custom to always sell your cards that way, okay? So I'm gonna explain to you guys, I'm gonna tell you guys who these people are that do this. I'm gonna explain to you guys why they do it. I'm gonna explain why it's good for them to do it sometimes, why the hobby needs margin buyers, and then I'm gonna give you guys some alternative options, okay? So first of all, let's talk about who these people are. These margin buyers, they're not here to rip you off. What they are, they're basically flippers. They are people that are in the hobby full time. They're either flippers or they're card shop owners or just people that do business all the time in the hobby. And they need to buy inventory and they need to turn it over quickly. So they buy it at 70% and then they turn around and they sell it at 80, 90, or even full comp 100%. And that's how they make their profit. They make anywhere between 10% to 30% margin on the cards that they're buying, and that's very reasonable, that's very fair. And that's a standard of practice. I know a lot of people, I know a lot of flippers that do this and they practice it. And the reason that they kind of develop this system is to protect themselves against market volatility. Now, a couple years ago, I'll give you a little history here. A couple years ago, when the market was just continually going up every month, it would be easy to pay strong on a card, to buy a card at 90 or 100% of the comp, assuming that the card would go up in value the next week, the next month, or whatever, right? But when card prices started to go down and when prices start to get more volatile, right? People, if they buy a card today and it loses 10%, 20% value the next week, they lost money. So to kind of bake that risk in, now they started buying cards at lower percentage of comps to kind of give them a little bit of buffer value. If you buy a card today and it goes down in value next week or the next day or whatever, if it goes down 10%, 20%, even 30%, you're still protected because you bought it at a margin. That's why these guys do it. There's nothing wrong with it. And actually, we need those type of people to provide liquidity in the hobby, to buy these cards from you and to turn them over, okay? We need that type of activity. We need those type of people in there. That's why they do it. Now, is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? I think part of it is good for the hobby. I don't think it's a bad thing, but I just want people to know that exists and there are other options for that, okay? So let me tell you, before I tell you the alternative options on how to sell your cards to get a higher margin value on them, let me tell you why it's sometimes a good standard of practice or good matter of practice to do that, to sell your cards to these flippers, to these margin buyers, okay? Basically, there's two scenarios where I think this works. Scenario number one is if you have a very good cost basis on your cards. I talk about cost basis all the time when valuing your cards. If you've got a really good cost basis, meaning that you're into the card at a low value, then you have the flexibility to sell it at 70%. Maybe you're into the card at 10% value, 20, 30, or even 50% value. And if you sell it at 70% of the comp, the current comp, you still make at least 20% or whatever it is, right? There you have the flexibility. If you just want to get rid of the cards, you don't want to have to deal with the work of selling it or shopping it around, that is a good option for some people, okay? It doesn't work if you bought the card at full comp. It doesn't work. It doesn't make any sense to take a loss on it. But if you've got a very low cost basis, then yes, that is a good solution for you. The second reason that you would want to do it is if you just don't want to do the legwork of selling the card to somebody else. If you're at a card show and you don't want to walk around the card show and shop it around to get 80, 90%, right? Then maybe if your time is valuable to you, if your time and effort is more valuable than the margin that you're giving up, then it makes sense to cash out at these buyers because you can do it quick. You don't have to shop it around. You don't have to walk. You don't have to be rejected or negotiate with people or anything like that. Or if you sell it on eBay, you don't have to ship the cards and you don't have to deal with the returns or anything like that. That's when it would make sense, okay? If you value your time and effort more than the difference of the margin that you're giving up, then yes, it makes sense to sell to these margin buyers, okay? So those are the two reasons that you want to do it. Now that that's out of the way, let me just tell you again, you don't have to always cash out to these people, even though there's a lot of them in the hobby and they're very accessible and it seems easy. You don't have to do it if you're willing to put in a little bit of time, effort, and do the work, okay? So I'm gonna explain to you 3 alternatives to selling your cards to these margin buyers. Alternative number 1 is, again, if you're at a card show or you're going to a trade night or you're willing to drive around to different shops, sometimes if you're willing to do the legwork and shop it around, sometimes you can find better margins. You can sell it for 80%, 90%, or if it's a card that's very desirable, maybe you get close to 100% comp on that card. You never know. You never know until you shop it around and you negotiate with people and you just see if you can find the right person to pay the price that you're willing to give up the card, okay? But you you will have to do the legwork, you will have to spend the time. So if you're willing to do that, if you're willing to put in the effort, you're willing to give up your time to do that, that is a good alternative to selling to margin buyers. So that's number one. Alternative number two is if you are not necessarily trying to get cash for your cards, you can use the cards in a trade and you can ask for more in trade value for the card than if you were to get cash. In our business, in our hobby, cash is king. So there is an expectation that if you're buying all cash, you want to give the best price to that person because they're giving you cash, which is more valuable than trade sometimes, right? But let's just say that you're trying to trade for a card that they have, or you're working a big deal, and if you're offering those cards and you're not asking for cash in return, then you can ask for trade value on the cards, and oftentimes the trade value will be a little bit higher than the cash value. Instead of 70% cash, maybe they give you 80, 90% trade value, or even higher, depending on the type of card, okay? So if you're willing to not take cash in return for your cards, you can ask for more on trade value. That is option number two, or alternative number two, okay? And then finally, alternative number three is if you're not going to a card show, you don't want to go to a card shop, you're not going to go to a trade night or anything like that, alternative number three is probably the most easy one for everybody, is selling your card on eBay at the comp price or close to the comp price. eBay takes 13%, roughly about 13%, like 12.5 to 13% of fees on the card. So, you know, in theory, if you sell the card close to the comp at 100% or 95%, you're making probably between 85 to 87% of value on that card, okay? But be aware that if you sell it on eBay, that you have to ship it, and you have to deal with eBay's very buyer-friendly return policy. So they can return cards for whatever reason at any time. You cannot argue with them. So that there is a level of risk there that you have to put up with. But if you don't want to do the other two options, then eBay is still a very good option if you can sell it close to the comp price, and if you're patient enough to go through that process. Okay, so that's basically the three alternatives to selling your cards to these margin buyers. Basically, if you're willing to do the work and put in the effort, you can do that. But if you want a quick cash out, then those margin buyers are always going to be there. And just understand that that is what you're expecting to, you know, that is the expectation. When you go up to these guys, the expectation is that they're going to buy it at a margin, and you've got to be willing and flexible to work with them. If it doesn't work for you, you've got some alternative options, but you got to put in the effort, okay? So that's basically everything I want to tell you guys in this video. Hopefully you guys got some value out of that. If you have any other alternatives to this, I'd love to hear it. Put it down in the comment section below. Let me know what you guys thought about this video. I love the feedback. If you get any value from this, please like, subscribe, share, comment, all that good stuff. All that feedback encourages me to continue to make these videos for you guys, so I would greatly appreciate that. The biggest takeaway here, guys, is I just want you to know that there are other options out there, and don't feel obligated to sell your cards at a deep discount to these margin buyers if you're not comfortable with that, okay? That's the biggest takeaway from this video, all right?
I'm the great curator, the ultimate gentleman investor. Yeah, the great curator always stays till the gold digging hour. So watch out, all you bad actors, 'cause you don't have the slabs to be kind and civil and polite to us all. I'm the great curator, the ultimate gentleman investor. Yeah, the great curator always stays till the gold